Hello, Carl again from selfsufficienthub.com, and we're out in the woods again. It is mid-July 2020 and I'm next to this oak tree. I'm in an ancient woodland and it contains lots of oaks that are hundreds of years old. We've also got a lot of ash and beech and all sorts in here. But where I'm stood right now is right at the base of this tree, something I want to show you. Now, it's not the best specimen. I'm hoping that we're going to find some more, but hopefully we'll have a quick look at this one and I'll just show you what excited me and made me want to spend a lot longer in this area, perhaps having a closer look. So down here we've got what's left of a bolette mushroom. Now, if I just pull him up, the bolette mushroom contains hundreds of individual species, but how we as a forager consider a bolette is basically any mushroom that's got a stem, a nice stout stem like this one. This one's actually half missing. Can you see that? It's been eaten. And a stout stem, and instead of gills, it's got these pores underneath. I'll just spend a second so you can get a good look at those. Now, it's a fantastic family of mushrooms for the forager because there's so many different varieties, but there's a few really simple tests you can do to know if it's edible. Now, this isn't going to tell you the species, but it's going to rule out anything dangerous. So the first one is to make sure you have a bolette mushroom. So like I say, with those features, there's a huge variety and they come in all sorts of different colors. So one of the things to let you know for sure that you have an edible mushroom is there's no sign of red on the mushroom. Now, that doesn't mean that all bolettes with red on them are poisonous. There are some that are delicious. But if you want to be able to just very quickly, without learning anything else about mushrooms, know if that one is safe to eat or not, then by disregarding all the red ones, then you're going to be disregarding a lot of the ones that are poisonous. That's the first thing. The second thing is we're going to cut this straight down the middle and we're going to have a look at what happens. So what we're looking for is any sign that the flesh is discoloring blue at all. And after a few minutes, can you see that we're starting to get some blue discoloration there? Now, that is predominantly from the gills, which I've been manipulating. So even though it's predominantly from the gills, you can see there's a tiny bit of blue there just showing up in the flesh. So because of that, if you weren't going to do any other tests, you would discard this mushroom. So those tests again, just really quickly before we move on. First of all, you make sure you've got a bolette mushroom, which is a nice upright mushroom with a stem that's growing from the ground, not growing on a tree, and that's got these pores instead of gills. So that's the first step. Second step is there any red on the mushroom? And if you haven't got any red on the mushroom and you've got a bolette, you move on to step 3, which is you cut it and you check for blue discoloration on the flesh. And if you don't have any blue discoloration on the flesh, you must have an edible mushroom. So when all's said and done, given the age of this specimen and the state it's in, I'm going to be leaving it behind. I'm not confident enough to actually identify it in the state it's in. So, like I say, I'm going to be leaving it behind. However, it does give me confidence because I've not found bolettes here in this wood before. So it's good to know that the bolettes grow here, and where there's one, in my experience, there's usually different species. So hopefully we'll be able to find some different mushrooms here. Just one of the many things you're blessed to see if you spend time out in the woods. And I've had her wander through just while I'm stood at the base of this beautiful dead oak and found these. So these are spindle shank mushrooms. So they are edible, but they're not really eaten. They're not considered something that you'd go out and pick. So more of a survival food, really. They just don't taste of anything, don't have much nutritional value. So they grow in these clusters. I'm not going to go into super great depth with them simply because they're so variable. They can look so different. So if learning this mushroom is something that interests you, then I suggest you get a good book like Mushrooms by Roger Phillips, and you spend some time with that, because just like deceiver mushrooms, it can look so very different. But basically, brown cap, it's got quite a strong stem, which is a bit fibrous, and off-white gills when they're young like this. But even just in this small space here, you can see how variable they can look. Just the difference in cap colours. I'm not sure that camera picks it up too well, but there's quite a stark difference in those two colours. The gills are free of the stem, which mean they don't, let me just cut one in half, which means that they don't meet the stem. You see how they dive away from the stem there? And they grow in these clusters around deadwood, predominantly oak, but you can find them on other trees. So that's our second mushroom of the day. So I've just found another cluster down here, and you see the difference in the shape of the stipe, the stem. So it's just not because it's not a particularly delicious edible, it's not one that I've spent too much time getting to know the exact characteristics of, and more importantly, the way to explain to you how to avoid poisonous lookalike. One thing I will quickly say though, one of the poisonous lookalikes is the sulphur tuft, and that's one of the commonest mushrooms that grows in the UK. I've done a video on those, and if you're into mushroom hunting, I do suggest you go and check it out. They've got a sort of olivey green colour to the gills, which is quite distinctive, but they're a mushroom that's really important to know, because you are going to find it. But like I said, I've done a video on that already, so I do suggest you go and check that out. Just next to the path here, I found growing on this twig, a slime mould, bright yellow slime mould. I'll do what I can to get the camera to pick it up. The colour really is quite remarkable. I believe it's called Foligo septica, and I've heard it referred to as the dog vomit fungus and the scrambled egg fungus. One sounds slightly more appetizing than the other, but it's not considered an edible fungus. We don't forage for it. I just thought it was interesting to show you. It's a decaying fungus. People sometimes find it on their mulch or their compost beds, and they worry. They think, oh my God, what's this toxic thing growing in amongst where I'm going to be growing my vegetables? But it's quite the opposite. It's just breaking down the organic matter like you would want it to do in your mulch or in your compost pile. So there you go. It's a slime mould, one of the many slime mould funguses. So I was expecting to find more today, if I'm honest, after those first couple of mushrooms I saw. I did see a tawny grisette, which is an edible mushroom, and I wish now that I'd done a video on it, but I went back and I couldn't find it. But I thought at the time, no need, because I'm going to find lots and lots of bolettes, because we saw that first bolette after just a few minutes from getting out the car. But alas, 'tis not to be. But we'll be back. It's a funny season this year. I think we're going to see lots of mushrooms over the next few weeks, so I'll do my best to bring as many of them to you as I can. So if that's the sort of content you want to find, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss anything. And if you find these videos valuable, there's several ways you can support them, and the easiest of which is to do just that and subscribe. But you can also like this video, leave a comment down below, and you can find our podcast, the Self-Sufficient Hub podcast, wherever you get your podcast. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one. I'm aware that the plural of fungus is fungi, not funguses. You don't need to tell me.